Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you're listening. Joined with me this week, the very real Chris Cute. What happened there? Was that my connection or was that Chris's connection?
I think that's Chris.
It was my connection.
Very strange. It just went. The
very real and very androidy.
I was congratulating you on how many hellos you got out this time. That was 8 hellos at the beginning of the podcast. That may be a new record, so I was congratulating you, Richard.
Fair play. The incredibly imaginative Joe Whitaker.
You're right, Sam, yeah.
The relatively well scripted Jason McGinn.
Hey!
and everyone's reoccurring nightmare.
He's back to his normal self, isn't he? Hello, everyone.
Yeah, well, that's it now. I've completely thrown myself now. So very quickly, we'll go through last week's shout-outs and thank yous, and they go to Andrew McQuillan, Jim Dockrell, Mr. Ruben, who I believe is a new listener, thanks to Pam, and Harnell Media. Also, a big thanks and warm welcome to those of you who appear to be in the live chat. So we've got very quickly, and forgive me if I miss people off, Dave the Wood Barber, Andy Pugh, Be Happy Woodworking, and I know there was one there who's new, Mark Lindsay CNC. So big shout out to all of you folks. Also, you know, we love it when people get in touch with us across the various social medias, interact with the live show and all of that. So by that, I mean, please interact with us and get in touch with us because not many people do.
Richard's lonely.
We're all lonely. Lonely. I'm so lonely. You can obviously get in touch with us across all various platforms. Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, Wood Turners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting, because we're still giving away an awesome Mancrafting mug, and now a new recent addition to the list, Pam over at Highland Boxes. If you want to find out more about our sponsors and what's going on, including, I'll leave it to Jamie to go into, but the awesome giveaway that's currently happening, you can visit our website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. Do you want to go into a bit more detail and plug the giveaway, Jamie?
Yeah, I can quickly do the giveaway if you want. Obviously, like Richard just said, we've got a giveaway going on. If you want to enter the giveaway, you can go over to the website that Richard just mentioned, makersinternationalpodcast.com. Go to the tab that says challenges and contests. There will be a drop-down menu saying huge giveaway. And this is on for mobile devices, as well as computers, laptops, all that sort of stuff. And the prizes is for one person only. You can win a tub of Yorkshire Grit and a Yorkshire Grit hat, a tub of Yorkshire Grit microfine paste, and a Yorkshire Grit microfine paste hat, a Makers International podcast /Mancrafting tumbler, and some custom blanks from Pam from Highland Boxes. All you have to do is go to the website, like I just said, click on the Glee map, and do all your entries and bits and bobs, and you are entered. So I'll go and post a link over on the Facebook page now and over in the chat, so people can go there and enter if they wish to do that now, or like I say, over on the Facebook group later if they want to do it later on.
Excellent. So in summary, we're giving away loads of cool stuff. Go to our website to find out more. Chris, Do we have any random listener questions for this evening?
Yes, we do. Actually, we have a couple. We have one from a gentleman. I won't use his last name, basically because I can't pronounce it. His name was George from our group. And it was a rather timely question. I'll let you guys handle it if you want to. George says, Chris, because he's obviously a listener of the podcast, he says, I noticed you guys mentioned a while back that you guys want to do something for your 100th episode. When is that? going to be, and what are you doing? And I went, well, George, I will bring that up this weekend because that's actually a very timely question. So, Richard or whoever wants to answer that, go right ahead.
I heard you're giving away cutting boards.
Jason, don't start. Just don't start. Okay, that's
I'll just
fun.
go ahead and put myself back on mute.
That's
here.
that's not funny. That's not funny.
I thought it was pens. I'll just put myself on mute now.
Actually, it's just gonna be beer, and I'll
Chris left.
I'll put myself on mute.
Well, now Chris is on mute. I thought we were doing a spotlight on Chris, so I'm going to hang up.
We're never doing a spotlight on Chris. Okay, just get over that, guys, please. Seriously. So when is the 100th episode?
Is it not next week?
It is next week.
And let's be honest here. No wonder people are asking, Chris, because of our fantastic numbering sequence, which we initiated a long time ago, which means we're now on episode 240 something.
Which obviously equals 100.
This is episode 247.
So episode 248, which is actually episode 100, not to be confused with episode. There wasn't an episode 100 because we started at 101, I believe. So
no,
yeah.
Jesus God, don't confuse people, Richard. Trust me. Next week is the 100th episode that we will do. And I will explain it next week if need be, but we really shouldn't have to do that, okay?
If anybody out there who likes calculus, we do have the formula down below if you want to figure out how we did work in our episode.
No, are we not talking with sort of previous guests and our sort of, I don't want to use the F word, not that F word, but our sort of
Festal.
Our festal guests and things of that nature, and getting people on and chatting about what's happened. Is that, or am I completely? I don't know.
I think that was the intentions. Yeah, if they want to,
maybe.
In other words, we realized two things. First of all, we realized that nobody really cares that it's our 100th because we just understand that that's the fact. And number two, we don't really care either that it's our 100th, but there seems to be a lot of people who make a big deal about the 100th episode of their podcast. So, we figured we ought to do something. So therefore, we're really not doing much.
Hey,
blow out a candle.
When it's your birthday, you can cry if you want to.
There you go.
yeah.
This is true. So, first random question, and that's a random answer. So we're doing well so far. Was there another random question?
Yeah, this one was from Richard, and it was designated to Joe. Joe, just what the hell are we talking about today? And that was Richard Morley who asked that question 2 minutes ago, who didn't have a clue what we were going to do today's show about. So I'll let Joe go take it from there. So good luck, buddy.
That's it. Well, I've noticed recently in the UK and probably in America as well, because on Twitter I've seen that new Making It show. There's quite a lot of maker orientated TV shows at the moment, as if one gets made and then there's another one and another one. But I haven't ever seen one that actually follows the traditional sense of how people get into making and how a normal person would actually tackle these kind of crafts. I kind of threw it into the one, I'm not going to name the show, but there's a show in the UK that is basically based around normal people getting hold of what's considered rubbish, junk items that are going to be thrown away, doing something to them, whether it's upcycling, chopping them up, using the materials, that kind of thing, to then sell for a profit. But that's how it's put across to the viewer. But they go ahead and they'll get an item for free from the tip, from the scrap heap, that kind of thing. But then they'll take it to a professional and pay a professional what I consider to be way overpriced for the work that they do, and then always show that they sell it for a profit. And I wanted to see what people's thoughts was of, do you think this is putting people off getting into making? Do you think it's doing more harm than good in terms of putting it into the mainstream to show, look, this is what you can do, but them showing it wrong, in my opinion, anyway? I just want to hear what your guys' take is. Anybody in the chat, if you've seen these kind of shows, do you see what I see, or am I just completely missing the point with these things?
Oh, I don't think you're missing the point with him at all. And there's probably a list as long as my arm of shows that are out there that I think probably misrepresent the entire thing, because you're telling me this is a show about getting people into making things, and all they're really doing is taking something from a garbage heap, taking it to professional to make it look pretty, and then they turn around and sell it. That has nothing to do with making. It has to do with making money, perhaps. But I mean, if they're actually giving the work to somebody else to do, then the guy who's doing that work is the guy who's making something out of it. You know, they're just passing it on to sell for a profit. So yeah, if that's your idea of making, then yeah, good luck. And from what you were telling me, they would like find something for free, pay a maker, some guy to, you know, make it what they want it to be for like £700, and then they're telling you they turned around and sold it for £1,000.
That's it. Yeah. Like the one example that I would use, there was literally like they arrived at a scrap heap, and there was a guy throwing away a table, like a kitchen diner kind of table. There's like, can we have this if you're going to throw it away? He's like, yeah, have it for nothing. They then took it to a professional, cost them £700 for the professional to put tiles on top of a wooden table. And then they claimed that they sold it for £1,000, and they went and gave the original guy the profit from the money that they'd spent. Now, that's all well and good. Like, that may have been genuinely what happened. But to me, I'd sooner see these shows like just show that it's easy to add tiles to a tabletop, and it's literally the cost of the tiles and the adhesive that you use if you're doing it yourself, kind of thing. But they don't ever do that. But that's how it's pitched across, as anybody can go and do this. Whereas I'd look at it and think, I haven't got £700 to pay a professional to do this and hope I'll go and sell it for a profit. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that's probably more a show that's about how to make money, you know, from upcycling than it is about making. I that's the impression I get anyways, like, because they're not actually doing anything. They're just kind of going, well, this would look nice as this. They have an idea, then they pass it off to somebody who actually knows how to make it look like that, and then they hope they can sell it. So that's not exactly a show about making, I wouldn't think.
It kind of seems to me like they're going to pick up all of the crap from the tip or the junkyard and all that sort of stuff, and then going to sell it up in like high-end London. And that's where they're coming up with all of the prices and things like that. You know, people who have got no kind of sense of money. You know, sort of like, oh, that little thing looks good. I'll pay £1,000 for that. You know what I mean? When reality is that table, all it needed was a nice sanding and maybe a bit of a nice finish, and it would have looked just as nice. Didn't need no tiles on top of it. That's just stupid, ludicrous.
How do you really feel, Jamie? How do you really feel?
It's kind of like taking that milk paint to a piece of walnut or something like that.
Oh my God.
It's stupid.
Okay. No, go on, Joey.
Go on, honestly. Go on.
No. I'm going to come in at one point, but I'm going to pick my moment.
You're just going to wait until you start talking, then it'll cut you off, and that's when he'll tell you.
He's not happy unless he interrupts you, Joe. So go ahead.
I was just going to bring up another show that like has got nothing to do with money, and I think it was like even called something Crafts at Home or something, trying to show people like this new movement that people are making their own stuff, and you can do it in your house. But the presenters literally went to professional classes for the professionals to teach them how to do something. And I can remember in the very first episode, they did letter printing using an old newspaper printing machine with the old like letter blocks. So you've got this massive like machine that's the size of the warehouse that they've gone in. They paid this guy £300 for an hour to have free reign on the machine. It's like for £300, you can do whatever you want with the machine, like as if this is a great thing that you can just go and do and just mess about with. The only thing that they showed in the show that you didn't need some expert to show you how to do it or some massive machinery was getting glass frames from IKEA, getting a leaf out the garden and putting the leaf in the glass frame and hanging it on your wall and saying that you got a modern art piece here for the low price of £7 for a frame from IKEA. Which is fair enough, but I don't know. I've kind of like got a bit of a beam up on it over this one. I think I just wanted an excuse to moan more than anything.
It would appear so, actually, Joe. I have to say. What I was going to add was, do you think that your sort of let's say mild cynicism over these types of show are as a result of your own abilities and skill set and tool inventory?
I'd say it's the opposite, if anything, because like that's my biggest argument with it. They try and make it seem as if you need to have an expert show you how to do it, or you do need like the exact machinery to do this job. I would much sooner see a show that would literally show people that you don't need anything fancy. You don't need to do this. It's what we do on YouTube already. People can go and find somebody who's literally got a drill and a sander in the shed, and they make amazing stuff. I'd love to see that on TV and see it represented, to show people who've never even thought about making their own stuff, because I think it's intimidating that, God, yeah, I could do that. But when they see a show and think, oh, let's watch this, it might be interesting, and then them seeing that they am just going to a professional, or them spending a ton of money to do it, and you can see, well, they've spent £300 on this print that they're going to hang on the wall. I could get it professionally printed online for 50 quid. I haven't got the enjoyment. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two kind of schools of thought there. Are you doing it because you just want to do it? You know, we've all kind of joked around the whole, I really want to turn a bowl, but I don't have all the stuff. So I could just, go down to the local craft store or, craft fair and buy a wooden bowl and have on my table, or I can go and, spend a few £100 on a lathe and some tools and spend hours doing it. And, then I've got my bowl, which is something I'm proud of making, but it still cost me more than it was.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. If you're looking to make that bowl, or, batch out a bunch of bowls simply because you enjoy doing it, that's one thing. But just like any business, Richard, is like you have to, it takes money to make money in business. You have to invest in the tools to do it if you ever hope to turn a profit. Now, granted, if your intention was to get one bowl, because that's all you wanted was one bowl, then you probably shouldn't go buy a lathe and a bunch of tools and everything else that goes along with a lathe in order to turn yourself one bowl. I mean, that makes zero sense economically. And actually, if you're not really doing it for fun, it makes no sense for you to do it in the first place, because it's going to take you longer to figure out how to make that bowl, first of all. But if you're doing it for fun, then, okay, that's an obvious, well-spent investment. If you're doing it because you want to sell bowls down the line, then the cost of the lathe is just the money you had to put out there to get started in that business. So...
I mean, I wasn't actually thinking of it from the sort of the money side of it for profit. But if you spend all that money on a lathe and the tools, and then your time invested in it, but the reason for that is because you want to make a bowl. I want to go and turn a bowl, rather than you could get lessons or go on a
maker space, whatever, someplace.
Something like that. Go and pay for a class. That's what I was thinking of. And then you can make your bowl. I mean, I bought my lathe and the lathe tooly stuff that I've got, not because I wanted to sell bowls, but because I wanted to turn some wood myself. I'd already got a few tools, and I thought I really want to get into wood turning. And that was the what's the word? The impetus for doing that. Was the catalyst for actually going and doing that. And I think a lot of us on YouTube, and if you asked anyone in the live chat and anyone listening now, why do they make things? That most people, I think, within the sort of the maker movement online, not all, but most, do it because they like to make things, whether it's with a 3D printer, with a printing press, with wood, on a lathe, with metal. It doesn't matter what the medium is. They just like making stuff. Just like people like to build plastic model aeroplanes and plastic model cars or trains. They do that because they like doing it, not from this. And then I think a lot of us think that the business side of it then can kind of take over later down the line.
Yeah, and maybe even an added aspect to that is people like somebody in my situation, because I happen to be retired. So when my wife retires from her job, I mean, we have no source of income coming into the house. We are living on what we earned already. And when that money's gone, it's gone. And when you are living on what they call a fixed income, no matter what that fixed income is, if you want to go beyond that fixed income, then you need a source of a way to make extra money. And so me getting into doing something I loved that I knew if I ever wanted to, I could actually go out and turn a coin on, you know, to go like, let's just say it's, and God forbid it does, but let's just for this is almost sacrilegious. Let's just say for instance, one week I find that I don't have any money for beer, you know, at least I know I have the skill, the ability, the tools already paid for and in my shop that will help me go sell something that I can make and sell to somebody, you know, whether expensive or cheap, doesn't really matter as long as I get the beer that I want. I mean, that's obviously a ludicrous scenario, but you get my point. There is that aspect of it too. You are investing in something that can, if you desire it to, bring back money into the door if you want it to. But what we're talking about here, and when Joe brought the subject up initially, I got, my initial thought was the misrepresentation of actually what making things or DIYing things is, and how that sometimes gets misrepresented on television shows and things of that nature. Now, while I think everybody would applaud the fact that the DIY movement, the maker movement, things of that nature are getting into the mainstream and it's becoming more popular, I think the whole idea behind Joe's thought is like, it's nice to have it become interesting to people, but it'd be really nice if it was actually showed to them the way it actually exists and not glamorized as being something that, you know, today I'm going to make this lamp and sell it for £3,000 or, you know, $3,000. When in essence, there's a lot more that goes into it than just some guy, you know, deciding he wants to do that, then showing up with a pretty lamp and selling it for $3,000. Because let's be honest, that doesn't happen too friggin' often. No. And a lot of these television shows kind of represent it that way. And so I thought that's kind of where we were going with this conversation.
Yeah, I see it as well as people being like putting across that you need to be an expert half the time. That's the impression that I get a lot from the TV shows, that they always like put people across as they've got this degree, that degree, they've learned from these people and they've honed the skills to be able to do this. And then what they do looks great, but the techniques are very simple. I'd much sooner the show that anybody could do this. We want to inspire you to give it a go, not look how great we am, that kind of thing. Like,
and also I think, like, I mean, you can show, oh, I found this in the garbage and fixed it up and blah blah blah, but like, I don't know about you guys, but like a lot of the reason I get tools is not just because I enjoy making things, but also I need those functionalities. I want those added things I'm going to need. Maybe these shows should show more practical things. Like, one thing I need a lathe for, you know, I didn't have to, I could have bought one, but to make a handle for one of my doors, a doorknob, and make just little things to fix things around my house that require those things. I don't need to go buy them anymore. I can turn it to a specific size, fit it, do those things. You know, those shows, they kind of, look, I made this beautiful, massive dining room table with this, you know, I don't know. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, kind of like a show that would spotlight one specific tool, for example.
It would, you know, I don't, you know, there's two schools of thoughts here. I mean, obviously, the way we think, those of us that are sitting here today, the way we think, that's kind of what we want to see.
We'll call them the normal thinkers.
Yeah, okay. Let's call us the normal thinkers, okay? But then you have to look at the people that are actually putting these television shows on the air, and they doing, that's a totally different business. They're doing it for ratings. They're doing it for people. They want to sell commercial time on these things. So it has to be, and when you're dealing with producers who probably don't have a freaking idea which side of a screwdriver to use, they're doing it because they are looking to generate eyes on their television show. So, and trying to get those two to marry, you know, while Jason's analogy of you know, I got this lathe because I want to show people that I can turn, you know, I can make a new doorknob if I want for myself. I can do this, I can do that. All very cool and very cool to us. But then you got a producer that's sitting over there going, how sexy is this going to be for my listeners? Are they going to want to sit down on my viewers? Are they going to sit down and want to watch this? Is this going to be interesting to them? And most of the time, because they don't have our mindset, their answer is going to be no. What we need to do is turn this that doorknob into a freaking chandelier that's made in a half an hour by somebody at home on their own. You know, it's like, you know, that's their thinking. And so it's two total different mindsets trying to come to a happy medium, and it probably is never going to work out to the betterment of either, to be quite honest with you.
That's my opinion. Point. Very good point there, Chris, with the editors and the production team. Are probably they're looking at it solely from, we've got to fit this into a half-hour slot on a Tuesday night, and take out the commercial time, we need 20-minute footage. So loads of that is going to end up on the floor. And equally, I'm kind of deliberately playing devil's advocate here with you, Joe. I actually kind of agree with you, because bottom line is, I think they're produced for people that aren't necessarily in the making sort of hobby themselves. It's more helping our hobbies get into the mainstream. But your latest video with the Deadpool keyrings, yeah, how long did it take you to make that Deadpool keyring from the moment you walked into your shed to the moment you walked out with the keyring, roughly?
It was actually like 4 days, because of
4 days.
Leaving it to set and stuff.
Well, okay, so ignoring the glue drying time and all those kind of, I can do nothing but sit and watch it. Yeah. That's basically the answer is quite a long time.
Yeah.
But then we, as content creators for YouTube or YouTube makers, or whatever you want to pigeonhole yourself as, how long was the video?
Like less than 3 minutes.
Like, not very long. Yeah. So can you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So there's an obvious kind of reduction in time, leaving steps out, and those decisions are made through the editing process, for I'm assuming the sole reason of hopefully people will watch and enjoy and watch it in its entirety.
Yep.
I wouldn't even mind seeing a show about Joe making a Deadpool keychain, if that was the focus of the show. And granted, it may end up being a 5-minute segment on a show. And I think it would even be well represented if they actually just said, somewhere along the line, 4 days later, this is what Joe had. At least made it real, made the point that this didn't happen overnight the way a lot of shows kind of make it sound like, I just popped in and turned this around and boy, I've hit the shiny bit now. And isn't that great? I mean, that's the impression they leave you with. And that's not the case at all. I mean, if they had actually said, hey, 4 days later, this is what we came up with.
Yeah. And it's also the fact of, like, say, if that was the premise of the show, but I put across that only I'm able to do this because this is really hard to do, and I've got a lot of skill and a lot of talent. So if you want to do this, you've got to put a lot of work and a lot of effort in to be able to produce this. But go and give it a go. You'll do rubbish when you start, but you might be able to get to my level sometime. That's the impression that I get. I think a good analogy to look at it, I'd love to see making shows turn out more like cookery programs. Because you'll watch a cookery show and them all professional chefs. They've all got Michelin stars, all that stuff. But whenever them cooking, them always putting across how easy it is to cook. It's always how simple it is, and look at the results you can come out with. Okay, you might give it a go at home and it doesn't turn out looking like that. But I don't find them like pretentious. They don't show that you need to have this knowledge behind you, or you need this particular fancy, fantastic oven. They might use it, but it's never rammed into you. You've got to do this. It's always, here's alternatives. If you can't find you can get this instead. I'd love to see the maker movement on TV go down that route, to make it more about the audience, try and get them involved more, make it appealing, make it open, don't make it like a scary area to try and dip your toe into, because it's really not.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, anyone can put a bit of tile on an old table and pick up some sandpaper and rub it backwards and forwards for a little while.
No, well, I love the fact that a lot of television programs and they get labeled this mislabel. Actually, in my opinion, is they become, a lot of the maker shows have this reality TV approach to them. Where in essence, there's nothing real about any of these shows that they're showing you. They say it's reality TV. It's just not reality TV. There's a show, and we were talking about this before we went on the air. I was speaking with Jamie and Joe about it. I don't watch a lot of DIY television shows on TV, but my wife does. And my wife doesn't know. I could hand her a screwdriver and she'd go, which end? I mean, seriously, she would, because she doesn't care. She doesn't want to know. She just wants to see the pretty thing at the end. And if the pretty thing shows up at the end, she's happy and she enjoyed the show and she'll watch it again. That's the mindset.
If not, she sends Chris back to the shop and do it again.
but that is the mindset. And I was telling Joe and Jamie that, there are times when I'm up in the kitchen, because I do all the cooking in my family. And speaking of cooking shows, and there are times that she'll be watching one of these shows when I'm in the kitchen, and I'll hear these people on TV talking, and I'm going, okay, that doesn't sound right. I got to go take a look at what my wife is watching. I'll go over there, and I don't even know what show it was, but it was something along the lines of where people were flipping houses, and these people that were trying to make money flipping houses are doing their own improvements within the home. Okay, and this one particular show she was watching, it was two ladies that were totally gutting this house and rebuilding it because they wanted to make their fortune in flipping this house or whatever it was supposed to be. And they're hanging drywall. Okay, this is how simple it gets. They're trying to hang drywall, and they're having a hard time doing that because they're not doing it right. And then they get all the drywall hung, and it looks like that's the first time they've ever done it. And then they start to mud the wall, and they put no tape down between the joints of the drywall. They're just mudding it. And the show was showing this and not having anything to say about it. And then they paint it, and my wife goes, "Oh, it doesn't look pretty." I go, "That house is going to fall down in like 6 months." I said, "I don't know what they're doing here, but it may look pretty today, but in 2 weeks' time, that's going to look like rubbish." And so, like Joe was mentioning, because what they need to really do is flip that house and go start another one, because it's not something you're ever going to want to live in. It would be nice if the people that they show doing this kind of things that are actually out there making showed that they did some research, because I can tell you, I've hung drywall, and there was the first time that I had to do it. But before I even started doing the project, I don't know, I spent some time learning how to freaking do the project, at least via textbooks on how it's supposed to be done. Somebody told me how it needed to be done, and I followed what they said. And like you said, the first time you do it, it may turn out like rubbish, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. But at least I know when I did it right. It may not have been the pretty that TV wants to see, but it was done correctly, and it wasn't going to crack down all these seams in the walls, like in 6 months' time when the mortar actually set. That's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. But that's all because I know they're doing it wrong. My wife doesn't know they're doing it wrong, and so she doesn't care. It's but to be honest, she's probably a bad example to use anyway, because she has no desire to ever do it by herself either. So it's like she'd much rather pay somebody.
Do you think a lot of the DIY shows are more based for like middle-aged people, just based like on the stories, like 20 years ago some person broke a nail, and they kind of it's there for the story rather than the project itself?
Well, absolutely,
entertainment. Yeah,
it's all entertainment. They're selling the entertainment, they're not selling the craft. No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have just seen an actual positive that I would agree with out in the chat. I believe it was Richard Martin. I think the comments just streamed by as I was looking at it, but he was talking about if these shows means that he can sell his craft items at craft shows, then all the better. And I can completely agree with that, because it is bringing making to the mainstream, because there's people that watch that will never ever want to do anything like that. But it does show some of the work that goes into these items, and showing the kinds of price tags that they do show on there. It makes the more reasonable priced handmade items look a steal, because I've just seen this show where this table was £1,000 with some tiles on it, and here's a guy who's selling the same one for £200, and he's done it all by hand as well. So I can really see that there is a benefit there, and even such as like for friends and family, say go back times gone by, may come something, oh, it's lovely, the thought's gone into that you made it. They may watch a few TV shows in making and think, that was a hell of a lot of work that they put into that to make that. So there's a lot more appreciation behind it. So yeah, I completely agree with that point, that them making it aware to people that this does go on and it is a lot of hard work.
Yeah, also, who was it? Richard also then goes on and it talks about Drew Pritchard on Salvage Hunters. So anyone not in the UK, there is a guy called Drew who owns a company. It's kind of an architectural reclamation business that he owns in the southwest somewhere, I believe, or South Wales, around that area. And he goes all over the country to basically old farms, people, antique shops, places that are closing down. He went to the British Hovercraft Museum. There is such a place, and just bought loads of old, interesting things. And he'll buy furniture and just basically what you'd see as tatty old stuff, and it will be renovated and then sold on to appropriate places. So it might be a collector, it might be a fancy inner city pop-up pub or bistro type place. It could be a fancy restaurant where he sells all these sort of things. He has a team of people. He's got his own carpenter, electricians, upholsterers, and actual experts that he will take this stuff to, and he pays them to do it up in such a way that it still looks old and there's a story, rather than restore it to brand new. And he'll sell it on to people, and he sends it all over the world. And he's created, you know, a TV show, a living, a proper business, an infrastructure, and a team of people around this business model. And I'm sure there's more businesses like that. It's just that we know about his because he's got a TV show. There's another guy that does it with old military vehicles and sells tanks to film companies and all kinds of things. So yeah, there is people out there that does it that wouldn't necessarily bring it to the mainstream. But I think those kind of people are very much in the minority, because, you know, restoring a Tiger tank to rent out to a production company is probably on a slightly bigger scale than.
Yeah, you may be dealing with a smaller freaking clientele. And the fact that there really aren't a ton of Tiger tanks out there running around that you can just kind of pick up on the sly. I mean, yeah, it may have a very limited avenue, but yeah.
But the premise is the same. I mean, there's people, you know, every used car lot up and down the country, in whatever country there is, that's basically what they're doing. They get an old car in, they do a bit of work to it, they put it on the forecourt to sell on to somebody else for more money than they paid and put into it. So it's not.
Yeah, Drew's show is a really good example of a good show, because you'll see a lot of the items that he picks up, because it is his business. Like, he owns the storefront, the shop that people like the general public can come in and buy from him. So if he does pick up an old lamp and he can see the value in the lamp, then he would literally just say, we'll give it a clean and we'll put it in the shop and we'll turn a profit on it. Whereas I find other shows might try and do something for the sake of doing something, which is all well and good, but then they spend a fortune. And he does get the bigger items, like you've been saying. Like, he might get, I seen he went to an old fairground once, and he brought like the Blackpool illuminations, like the big plastic light up things, and he ripped some of them apart to make smaller items to maximize profits, and he made one into a seat, like really went to town on them. But the costs was very reasonable, like, because he was doing it himself with his own team, and they actually showed the process of what they did. So you could get an inkling of, yeah, I'd like to give that a go, or no, that's a bit intimidating for me, that kind of thing. But if he was to go, right, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to go and pay somebody else an exorbitant amount of money, and then I'll still be able to sell it for a ton, that'd be different. But Drew's show is a really good one to watch. I really enjoy Salvage Hunters, so that's like an exception to the rule, I would say.
That's actually one of the ones I don't really watch that often, actually.
There was a question from Nate from the Young Man's Workshop. He says, if we didn't have mainstream shows, how many people would still be unexposed to DIY?
No, I think that's the point. I think it's a great thing that that the exposure is out there. I think that what Joe was initially talking about was the reality of that exposure. Well, I think nobody would say that it's a bad thing that, you know, it's getting in mainstream and people are developing interest in it. And in some cases, it may even be telling, you know, some kid who's never going to make it in college, you know, he may see something and go, I would really like to give that a go, and find that, you know, he can make a good living at what he's doing. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that the premise of what Joe's question was about was misrepresenting what it actually is, and people becoming disillusioned once they decide, I'm going to make the jump and get into it. And they realize that it's just not that, you know, cut and dry, easy peasy, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then they give up on it because that's the way it's being presented. I think that's the issue.
And you can liken that to YouTube as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed in the last maybe 18 months or so, a bit longer maybe, the shift in just in the maker videos seems to be swerving away from today I'm making this board game. I don't know, pick something, because I want to make a board game, and I'm going to do this, and this is why I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and it's maybe like a 8 to 10 or 15 minute video, almost like a step-by-step, follow along with the journey. There's the end thing. Woohoo, I've got my game. now it's more about the storytelling, and the production value, and the entertainment factor of it. And it's the videos are getting condensed down and down and down compared to those older videos. And from that, I think they're more entertaining, certainly. But if you were just coming into that and you saw a video on, I don't know, whatever it is, and you found that because you were looking at doing that yourself because you got one of them or whatever it was, you wouldn't use that as inspiration to perhaps do it yourself, because you haven't got the kind of the backstory of, I'm some muppet in my old lady's conservatory doing this, and this is how I'm doing it, and you could do this as well. And you lose that sort of average Joe approach, and become a viewer rather than a, how do I change the light in my Ford Capri or whatever it is that they used to be? Do you know?
You're talking about people becoming the producer as opposed to the maker. They're putting the emphasis on the producer side of it, going, I'm now looking to get a lot of views on my video, so therefore I'm going to take this approach, as opposed to doing something that is more of a, here's how it is actually done approach to it. And that's the shift that you said you're seeing now. Am I correct? I mean, Richard, and I don't disagree with you, because I've seen it to the point where people, and not intentionally, I think that guys, if this is you that I'm talking about, that I'm not picking on you or calling you names or something. I'm just saying there is misrepresentation that goes on even within the small YouTube channels and YouTube videos that we're throwing out there as makers. I mean, I've seen posts of people several times. This post has come up and people have said, all right, be honest, guys, how many times have you worn the same shirt in a video that took you 4 days to shoot just because you want to give the impression that you knocked this out in an afternoon? And I'm like going, well, why would you do that? Why? I mean, because anybody who sees this video, who knows exactly what you did and how you did it, is going to know it took you more than just an afternoon to do it. So why are you misrepresenting the craft that way, or what you're doing that way? Because you want to, is it because you want to be seen as the man, and hey, I knocked this out in an afternoon, it would take everybody else 4 days, but look at me, I did it in one afternoon? It's like, and that's kind of misrepresentation, on a very minor scale, granted, but I mean, let's be honest, that's what it is.
I think at that point you're way overthinking it too.
Yeah, way overthinking it.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
And also, not just misrepresentation, I think there's a lot of misinterpretation as well. I mean, we've all had I could do that if I had $1 bazillion worth of electricity in my workshop kind of comments. And we've all had that's not how you do that, that's not real, whatever comments as well. So I think from people that watch, because you're putting it out to everyone, the makers, the interested, and the randomly stumbled upons as well.
The trolls.
Yeah, I mean, basically everybody. And I think that's probably true for the TV side. Only the TV side, I think, is probably doing it more for the randomly stumbled upons, and just sit down and watch this channel and my program, not another one. Do you see what I'm going for?
Yeah, if you head over to Twitter when one of these maker programs is on, I'm like, well, this is going to sound bad because it's kind of like siding with the trolls, but I'm pleased to see that a lot of people do realise that this is like, no, this isn't real. Like, this wouldn't happen like this. So, like, such as with the leaves in a glass frame, there was like, this is meant to be a craft show. Like, what craft is involved in buying a frame from IKEA and putting a leaf in out the garden? Like, it was getting a lot of like bad publicity on Twitter. But they still produce them and still churn them out, I suppose, because of them getting the views. It's like all publicity is good publicity.
But one thing that has just occurred to me is, are we becoming those kind of people that watch a film and go, that's wrong?
Yeah.
That's a period incorrect. They didn't wear those in the American Civil War.
Why is the sky dishes in Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah. Are we overthinking about it?
What you're saying is, are we becoming too cynical?
Yeah, I think so.
No, not just too cynical. I mean, like Jason just said, I don't know. I'm kind of mocking myself at this point, really. Are we overthinking this? Does it really matter? You know,
I think in a way it does. I mean, look at the way the corporate world all of a sudden took a switch to. They used to care about people and balance between profit, people, and functionality and quality. And now it is 100% profit. So what? People get screwed. People get forgotten about. The actual real thing isn't addressed or handled properly. Like the quality of the product isn't
as good as it once was.
Yeah, it's not there anymore. And why? Because they're too busy paying attention to, in this case, how many views can I get? So I can get advertisers to give me more money. Who cares about people?
It's very pretentious for somebody to
short-term thinking.
Yeah, I don't want to separate it this way, but I'm going to do it just to make the point. It's like, there's one faction that's going, hey, look, I'm an entertainer. I'm looking to just get as many eyes on my things as I want. I'm going to be an entertainer. But it's also very pretentious for somebody to say, put their hands on their hips like they're Superman, stand with a cape on their shoulder and going, I am an inspiration. It's like, you really, I call BS either way. It's like, how about just being real? Be real, and people can relate to real because obviously, unless you're a freaking robot and I'm not aware of you being a cyborg, you're real. So if you're real with me, I'm going to see that. And so it's not really.
And that's the inspiration we should be spreading. I mean,
it's not as cut and dry as being one thing or the other. It's just a matter of like, do me a favor, be yourself, and do it and show who you are and show how you do it. And, don't try to dress it up with things that you aren't. I mean, God knows, anybody who's ever seen my videos, they know I am far from perfect. It's like, and I don't try to hide that because that's just who the hell I am. It's like, but at the same time, I'm not looking to make money. I don't care how many views my video gets. I'm not trying to become the next YouTube superstar. So none of these things bother me. I mean, but if you are, and my advice to people like that would still be yourself, because the only thing that's actually going to take you to the levels that you want to be at is to be genuinely accepted. And and I think in the craft of people, I mean, however you want to put this in whatever area that you want to apply it to, is if it's genuine, and if it's and if people grasp onto it, you're going to be successful. But if you're faking it, and people, eventually you may get to a certain level, but sooner or later somebody's going to go and call you on something, and then
that's actually exactly what I mean by short-term thinking. Like, you can get a lot of views, in my opinion, anyway. You can get a lot of views by showing people the clickbait stuff and doing your little, show some pretty girl on your thumbnail or do whatever it is that makes everybody click your thing and give you all sorts of views. But in the long-term run, people are going to stop watching your stuff. They're going to realize that you're just pulling your crap and they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's going to shy people away, or the right people anyway, but it's my opinion.
That's true. I agree.
Okay, well, I forget the guy's name because I'm rubbish with names, as everyone knows. But Wave Cycles, let me just grab it back on the live chat. He said in the live chat, this is a little while ago, and I know it's kind of moved on, but it does still make the point. He says, if somebody wanted to take the plunge as a maker and have making as their sole income, could it not be said that these shows are actually helping to manage expectations as to what bespoke could cost? So going back to Joe's table analogy, I'm going to assume that the table that they found, wherever it was they found, they didn't pay for, and they sent it off to the guy to be tiled, paid £700, and then brought it back.
Stuck it in the flea market, and then they claim they sold it for $1,000 to somebody. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that actually happened, and the tiler was charged and was paid £700, and that then they moved on and sold it for £1,000. Personally, I don't see why a tiler or anybody would charge £700 to put some tiles on a top of a table, unless they were fairly antique tiles that would cost him a lot of money in the first place, because those tiles might have taken the same route as the table. There's the time involved and all the rest of it. But then
But does it I think his point was, does it desensitize the audience as to what things that are a quality cost? And I think he has a point there. I think that it probably does bring to the forefront the people who watch these shows. Does it help them understand what quality costs? I think that's a fair point. If that's the avenue you're going to take, I just don't know that that's the point that actually comes across on these shows. I don't know.
Well, that's where I was going, because you've got you're exposed to these numbers. Some people might see that and go, "Whoa, I'm not paying 700 quid to, I haven't got 700 quid to spend on a table that I might get an extra 300 for." But you've also got the people that have gone, "Oh, I could do that, and tile that myself, and maybe I could get." Again, interpretation as well as representation. It's where did he completely disassemble and strip down that table and refinish it and tile it and then send it on? In which case, is 700 quid an unrealistic number? But you kind of have to make these sort of random assumptions and leaps of faith in what's happened as well, which again is interpretation. Does that go back to the production company as what went on the cutting room floor?
I think that would be with the production company, because it's kind of the pitch of the shows. If the pitch of the show was about the guy who was doing the table, then that would be completely fine, because then that does show his work and his time that has gone into it and why he's charging that much. But this particular show is like you and the viewer, you and the person who's going and getting the table for free and deciding to pay somebody else to do this little job for you so you can go and sell it on. And it's sold as a craft show. So I just see that it should be them showing, well, now I've got this table for free. This is how I, an amateur, would do this to try and make a bit of money off it. So it's like, it depends how the show is formatted, how it's pitched, how it's put across to the viewer. So I think in the format that I've been talking about, I don't think it does help people who are thinking of buying stuff. But if it was about the guy who was putting the tiles on the table, then it definitely would desensitize people. Because if they've had a quote off somebody and it's like, "Oh, I'm going to charge you 500 quid for this table," and they thought that's way overpriced, then they watch a TV show and someone's charging double. It was like, hold on, I must have underestimated this guy. I'll go back and check it out, kind of thing.
I mean, I can remember, I can't remember exactly what I think it was called The Restoration Guy. And it was...
Was it a guy called Nico?
No, not Rico Daniels. That was Salvager. Rico Daniels, that was something else. But there was two guys. One was an antiques dealer and one was a carpenter. And they've both been on, I think, one Antiques Roadshow, and one was a Chippy with Tommy Walsh when he did the series and him. So they were already both TV people anyway. And they used to go to an auction, have a look around and bid on a few things, buy something at auction for cheap. And then the antiques guy would hand it over to his Chippy and he would restore bits and put new veneers on and, clean up locks and do mirrors, like the old lead-backed mirrors. And part of you get like 3 minutes at the start of the auction, and then the bulk of it was the restoration side. And he'd show you how he would do certain things. So he'd talk about, the type of polish and, the fact that these old mirrors got lead on them, but they can be faked with modern mirrors to get the same effect if you've got to replace it. Do all these kind of little bits. And then it'd be 3 minutes at the end with them going to a different auction site and re-auctioning it off and hopefully turning a profit. And I think they were realistic in terms of it was inspirational for somebody like me thinking, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could, refinish a table and clean up an old mirror and do whatever. I've got no clue with the auctions, but at least part of it, I think, even if I didn't auction it, I could look at an old table and think I could bring that back to life and do that myself.
You know what that got me thinking about? That one actually family that does this like perfectly right. From my experience of shows that I've seen, the Durestas. Jimmy, like every show I've seen him in, what was that? Money, Trash to Treasure,
Trash to Cash.
Trash to Cash.
Yep.
Like phenomenal show. Watching Matt and his dad go, like awesome, spot on. I love how they format their shows.
Exactly.
And
that
was kind of weird.
They always put it across as it's something simple to do, like especially the way Jimmy works. It's very much, let's grab this and let's chop this off and let's chuck this on. Like he's already got it all figured out. Let's just do it, as opposed to perhaps him trying to give a pitch of how great it is what he's doing.
Right, exactly. And a lot of that show, I mean, granted, a lot of that show, the stuff that because they went on and sold that at the flea market at Jason. Yeah,
They show both sides of it, and they show the
Yeah.
hunting of the stuff. They show the preparing of the product, like how long you got to strip all this leather off the couch. You got to, like they don't. It's no
They don't
hide
go into-
stuff.
Yeah, they don't go into the minutia, obviously, because that doesn't sell. But I mean, they give you a good idea of the process that went into taking something that they may have found off the side of the road. And a lot of those episodes, they would show John and Jimmy go into some guy who's, an antiques dealer, and then they would chew him down on a price and find something, and then Jimmy would grab it and make something really cool out of it, and they'd go ahead and sell it on at the flea market and make a decent profit out of it. I mean, that was the premise of the show. But
You
it was
get a good
really
idea
cool
of the
because
process,
yeah, because it really gave you the process from A to Z as to how that is done. Hey, granted, it's within a half an hour show, and if anybody decides, if you can look at that show and tell me that you think what they do is easy, then I'm going to say then you need to go back and rewatch the show because you didn't get it because they obviously showed you this takes work, and it's not something that they tried. John may have made it sound like, oh, well, we just went ahead and did this, but Jimmy's back there looking at him going, well, who actually, yeah, it's like, he'd be like, this guy, it's like, no, not really.
I think with all of these kind of shows, whether it's, Jimmy or the one that Joe's talking about, I think you've got two sort of types of viewer. You've got the viewer who's just watching telly and it's entertainment. And then you've got the sort of the maker. And just like us as viewers on YouTube, when you watch a video, you might go and actually look for specific information or a specific idea, or you might just be watching one of your regular subscribed channels and that's entertainment, or you might be looking at it for inspiration. And I think they both have a very delicate balance for each of those very specific viewers. Does that make sense? So you might watch
It does
Jimmy and be, do you know what? Next time I see a leather couch on the side, I'm going to take my knife to it. And I wouldn't have thought of that. And or you might go down the tip and see that old thing and go, do you know what? I might have a go at refinishing that. If it goes nowhere, I don't necessarily have to sell it on, but it might just spark that idea to make you then go on and do whatever it is you might not otherwise have thought about. I think if you take the money side of it out completely, I think there's still value in terms of inspiration for that on the one hand and entertainment on the other.
Right. Well, Chad, over in the chat, said that this conversation has been uncharacteristically negative towards the maker community. And I don't know if Chad's talking about the chat that's going on in the live chat or if he's talking about us, but we certainly did. By no way and means did we mean to be negative about the maker community about this. I think what the whole premise of the show was is that we're trying to show that it actually get represented correctly.
We're talking about these reality TV type shows that are playing.
Okay, I saw that and I went, Chad, I hope that's not the impression you get because that's certainly not where we're coming from.
And none of my comments referred to the community at all.
Yeah.
Drop TV, go to YouTube.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
TV sucks. We rule.
We got to wrap this up, Richard, because we're already about an hour.
That is. I suspected that this might actually happen. Does anyone actually have a shout out this week, or does everybody have a shout out?
Yeah, I've got a shout out.
Oh, Jamie, you're here.
Yeah, I am. But before I do that, I've got to do the old Jamie's page.
Never gets old.
First of all, Mr. Brett McAfee has just got to 13,000 subscribers within the past couple of days. So well done to the captain. Secondly, one of my good friends, Joe, has just started a channel called Once Upon a Boutique. She started it a couple of weeks ago. She's only got about 8 subscribers at the moment. 9 because I've just subscribed. She's got a couple of videos up already to do a polymer clay, and obviously there'll be a few more up there quite soon. So yeah, you go and subscribe to her. But my shout out goes to the captain, Sir Brett McAfee. He did an incredible video and he restored an antique spyglass, and then he made a leather case for it as well. Now, if that wasn't enough awesomeness for it, he also did it alongside Eric from Hand Tool Rescue, who also has a great channel. So yeah, that's my shout out.
Awesome. I love watching Brett's videos because he is almost the poster child for great storytelling, inspirational. It gives you like ideas that wouldn't otherwise come to me, and he is just so down to earth in what he does. If you ever met him, you'll know exactly what I mean. Fantastic. Yeah. Spot on.
Awesome. Yeah. My shout out this week goes to and it goes along with it, getting the name that can do it and then getting the entertainment value out of it, and then it sells. It's and this was just so funny. I this had to be my shout out this week. It goes out to John Hayes. Because I think only he and maybe a few others could get away with posting a video like he did. He posted a video today, actually Sunday, on his main channel, by the way, because John has like 5 channels. But on his main channel, he posted a video on how to make a grilled cheese sandwich.
Nice.
And he's one of the only few people I know that within 4 hours would have over 6,000 views on that video. I mean, I have never met John, but if you watch enough of John Hines, you kind of get an idea of his personality. And I've got a funny feeling he posted that and just started laughing. And it's like, you know what, John, hats off to you. That's great. How to make a grilled cheese sandwich on the I Build It YouTube channel. John, that was funny. I'm sorry, it was good stuff too, by the way. So yeah, go check out John's video on how to make a grilled cheese if you don't know how to make one. It was awesome.
Excellent. I'm going to leave mine till last, so I don't know if Jason or Joe want to dive in with theirs very quickly.
I'll go for mine. Fellow New Brunswicker, actually, from New Brunswick, Canada, Rob Kosman, Cosman. He's a tool maker, and he sells like high quality tools. He's quite well known actually internationally. And anyway, one of his things that he likes, one of his big things he's getting out of his business now, that it's really thriving, is stepping back and helping. He gives free classes to people with PTSD, actually U.S. soldiers in particular, funny enough. So he teaches them how to do woodworking, and he's actually trying to work with psychologists and different groups of PTSD helpers, like different people that would help with that realm of things, and make it part of a process. Because when you're cutting, as he says, when you're cutting a dovetail, you're not thinking of all the other things. And I imagine a lot of people in the community here can relate to that, maybe not to the PTSD, but to the
for sure,
mind releasing
that's awesome
agent that comes with making. Yeah. So Rob
Absolutely.
Kosman.
Awesome.
COS. Yeah.
And the stories like that warm your heart. That's good stuff.
Yeah, he's a good fella.
Unfortunately, no shout out for me this week, guys. I've been watching too much Maker TV to jump on it.
Whilst you're standing Duke and Nipper.
He's throwing vegetables at his television screen. All right, Richard, you go.
My shout out is actually a really old video, and I picked it because it kind of fits into, or I thought it sort of fits into this reality or not reality and all the rest of it, but with a slight twist. So this week's shout out is Pat Lapp at Le Pic Bois, and the video that he produced and put out over a year ago now was wood turning a cremation urn. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this? Brilliant video. It worked as a thing, but the storytelling side of it as well. And the reason I picked this is in about the last, if you've already seen the video, just go and rewatch about the last 30 seconds, because he films a guy getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I picked that because obviously he didn't film a guy getting hit by a car. It was the way in which it was edited. And it kind of, for me, brought it home in that sometimes what you see on the screen isn't actually exactly what happens in real life. Sometimes there's a little bit of trickery or things left out and changes made in the editing and whatnot that makes it appear slightly different.
I hope you're not
makes
saying
sense.
that memes aren't necessarily true.
Because you know what, I'm deleting my Facebook account like right now if that's the case.
So, look, all you can see fake memes as far as the Woody Buzz Lightyear.
And that's awesome.
But yeah,
Also-
also it's a cool video as well. So
I'd like to point out that 3 of the shout-outs today were Canadian. Just saying.
You should really
Yeah.
be apologising for that.
Hansel Rescue's Canadian.
Yeah.
Wow.
we can mess with that in the editing, can't we, Joe? It'll
And
be
it-
fine.
At some point in time, we should probably discuss the forgotten country that doesn't have maker fairs and doesn't have the maker centrals, and a country that probably deserves them. But I don't know what country that would be, but that would be a conversation for another day. Anyway, and you're welcome, Jason.
It's because we're so spread out. We got so much room up here.
Nobody wants to go work inside an igloo.
And that.
So we've had an awesome show. We've gone on a little bit longer than normal. We've been a bit serious. We've been a bit joking, but we couldn't end it without taking a look at Canadians just for a couple of minutes. So hopefully it hasn't been too depressing for either the makers or the watchers of Maker TV. Reality TV, we all know, sucks anyway. So if you're still listening, thank you. If you're not, we'll say what we like about you. But until next week, whatever happens. You take care. We'll see you soon.
Have a great week, everybody.
See you next week.
Take it easy, everyone.